And most of the students at Madison were pottery students and had that big experience with clay, especially making vessels and so on. And by then, of course, Wrights was the ceramics man, and most of those people were studying with Don. My assistantship, which I assumed was to operate and maintain the shop and do a little teaching, Harvey informed me was not the case. My assistantship was to go to Harvey's farm and be his personal assistant in his personal glass studio, not to help the school.
So who was helping the school?
He said, everybody is on their own. You guys run it as a group and work together. There's nobody in charge of the shop.
Sounds communist to me.
Pardon?
Sounds communist.
It was socialist, yeah. But you see, I believe his vision was that we all needed to go out and operate studios. We all needed to spread the gospel. You know, the more schools that Harvey could plug a glass blowing instructor into meant the better Harvey's program looked, and the more people saw glass, the easier it would be for Harvey to sell glass. Yep. Yep. I mean, he was patting himself on the back at the same time that he was raising us up and sending us out into the world. And I didn't know it at the time, but I'm sure that was part of his program in his mind. Yep. So I'll never forget. I'd been struggling with color, and we had a little pot furnace, and I finally got some copper red glass to strike just killer ruby, just real rich red glass. And I put 3 pieces in that great big window at the glass lab. Remember the great big front window? Well, it was a cold day, and Harvey came in for the class. He went way down where the furnaces were at the other end of the building, and he was talking to people there. And then he decided, I guess, that it was time to start class, and he turned and faced that window, and he screamed, "Who did that?" And I said, I made the red. And he said, "You be in my studio this afternoon at 12 o'clock.
So did you do it for him too?
Oh, you bet. I did a lot of those things for him. Yeah.
You should have done a little something different, and then blame his furnace on it.
Well, the red didn't happen every time.
No, it was tricky.
You had to keep your knees bent on that.
Yeah.
But we melted a lot of silver glasses, of course. And color was important.
That copper and silver glass, I did a furnace of it one day, and I'd done, I think, quite a few pieces with it, and they definitely were dichroic. Most of them, the surface was completely blue, aqua color, and if you held it up to the light, especially one of these, if you look through there, you'd see the copper ruby, but it was so dense that it took a really strong light to see it.
Right.
But the next batch, I came out in the morning, and the propane tanks I was running on 200-pound bottles, running to fire the kiln, and obviously got too cold, and the propane froze, and the burner went out. And so the glass was down to a dull red in the furnace. Well, I left the doors open, turned off the gas to the bottle, and waited till all the gas escaped, and then started it back up and took it back up to temperature, and I blew probably 5 or 6 pieces from that furnace, and they were every color under the sun. Orange, green, purple, yellow, red, blue, green, in streaks from the gathers. And one of them is in a museum, I think Morristown, New Jersey museum now, and it came out, it was just pure copper. had a thick layer of copper on the surface, pure copper, that had been reduced.
Reduced to the surface, yeah.
Yeah. And I was sitting looking at it one day, and I saw something about the way the copper changed according to the streaks from the gather.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I think that's just a layer on the surface. Why don't I take it off? So I got some hydrochloric acid, started brushing it over the copper, and here was this beautiful colors under it.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah.
But I never did that again. I never turned the furnace down to cool it. And if you melt marbles in the garage for the conference, I would like to love to see that. Try it again.
Try that trick, yeah.
You're going to be melting marbles at the conference?
Jack wants to.
Not me. Jack might do it.
Jack wants to get
He's
the
not
garage set up just the way it was in '62 with marbles.
Are there marbles available?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get them.
Oh.
I found
I
some.
have a plastic bucket of them at the studio.
That'll be a start.
Can you tell them about your experience with the marbles in Mount Vernon when we came back from Seattle?
I went out to Seattle for a year and we rented our house, and I told the fellow, the colleague from the Flosser department, that I had to leave the garage unlocked for some reason the day we were leaving the studio,
Mm-hmm.
and said lock it up after I've left so that nobody gets in there and disturbs anything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he didn't pay attention to me, and the local cop got complaints from various stores in town that they were noticing somebody's putting holes, little tiny round holes in their windows. And Lumberyard had some holes in their windows, and some stores,
Every window was...
some windows downtown had holes in the windows. And so he's looking around, being a good detective, and at the hardware store he noticed these marbles, about this big around, kind of blue-green marbles. And he said, where have I seen those before? So he's thinking a while if I realized it was over there on
color.
2nd Avenue North. He came over, and I think he just opened the door to the garage and went in, and there was a 55-gallon oil drum of marbles. And he got hold of the philosopher and said, lock that place up.
That's a riot. Yeah, they're the perfect size and weight
Yep.
for slingshots. Amazing.
There was another funny story coming back from Seattle that, remember you packed up all your furnace and everything?
Yeah, I brought back, I took a furnace when I got a grant to go back and study art history for a year at the University of Washington in 1966, after the fall of '66. And Harvey had told me that Russ Day up at Everett Junior College really would love to see somebody build a studio for him at the college. So Harvey suggested you ought to take a furnace and every equipment out with you.
Mm-hmm.
So I did. We rented a trailer behind our van, and it had the furnace and annealing oven, bench, and everything. And that's when I learned to blow glass. Russ was wonderful. He let me blow there as much as I wanted.
Wow.
No charge. I was supposed to teach him how to blow glass.
Yeah.
And he had never had time until finally Christmas vacation came, and so then I got him down to the studio, and we blew 2 days, and he said, I'm not strong enough for this,
Oh my.
and didn't blow anymore.
Huh.
Said it was too much work.
Yeah. And where was the furnace set up?
In the welding shop,
Oh.
under a welding hood.
Of the community college?
Yeah.
Everett Community?
Yeah.
I'll be darned.
And I blew 20
And that was
hours a week.
66.
66, 67. I blew
Yeah.
from October. I probably had it up and running in October, and I would drive, get up, and we lived halfway between Everett and Mount, what was it?
Linwood.
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 Halfway between Seattle, the campus, and Everett. So I get up in the morning, go drive down for classes. As soon as my class was over, I turn around, drive to Everett. That was 60 miles.
Right.
And blow glass till evening, and then drive back
And
home.
go home.
And then Saturdays, Sundays, I'd get up there. I think a lot of Saturdays I was there all day. And by the end of the year, I was an accomplished glass blower.
Yeah,
I was. I remember a guy named Weiss, Dick Weiss, had just gotten his MFA at Wisconsin, and he lived close to Everett, and he came down to spend a day with me blowing glass. And he was just amazed at what I was doing. He said, nobody is blowing glass like that. And so we packed up to go home, and I made the mistake, we had to get everything back into the trailer. And so I was looking for every available space that I could find to put things in, put them away. We got back home, and I discovered I didn't have any underwear. No T-shirts, no shorts, no socks.
For a month.
For a month.
You didn't have any.
Could not find any of this. So somehow we got lost. And we did have trouble with the trailer because I packed it. As things were put in boxes, they went in the trailer. And I never took it back out and sorted it by weight.
Yeah.
And there was no weight on the tongue of the trailer. And it started whipping back and forth up in Canada. We went through the Canadian Rockies. And so we stopped at a weigh station where they have the scales. And the guy weighed, he said, you got to go back and go over to the parking lot, take everything out, put the heavy stuff in front, the light in back. And so we had everything out in the parking lot. And I thought, we left a box of underwear in that parking lot.
Oh, my God.
Well, finally, after we'd been home for 2 or 3 months, I finally got out and start up the furnace. I opened the annealing oven, there's a box of underwear.
Inside the oven.
It
You were using all
was a perfect,
You were using all the spaces.
just perfect fit. So now I had 2 complete supplies.
Yeah. You haven't had to buy underwear since, right? Oh, that's a great story.
But that was a great experience out there, except...
Now, you mentioned a fellow, Dick Weiss, came to visit you. There is a Dick Weiss who lives in Seattle now, was born and raised in Everett, Washington, and he's a stained glass guy.
Yeah, that's not the same
That's a
guy.
different Dick Weiss.
The other Dick Weiss died not long after I saw him. I think within 3 years. He
my.
died of something.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess you were just leaving. No, you were still, when did you leave? 66 or 67? Madison.
7.
So you did see him. But he probably was an undergraduate.
Yeah, the undergraduates weren't around at all. They weren't allowed in the glass lab.
Oh, they weren't?
No. That was all strictly a graduate program because, why? Harvey was making disciples to go out in the... And how many students were there? 12 students. 12 graduate students. Ready to spread the gospel.
How many did we have in Iowa?
Oh, students? I don't know.
8?
I would say it was about 8.
8 or 10. I know there were 2 guys, the first class, I think, 64, they just got MFAs in metalsmithing. And they took 1 class in glass blowing. They went to Santa Fe, and they built a studio right in town, and made a living off their glass for tourists.
Yeah.
And they were demonstrating, blowing right in front of the tourists.
Yeah. Wow.
And after, I don't know how long, 6, 8 years of that, they made enough money to sell the studio and go back to jewelry. But it was the perfect way to get...
They used glass to finance their jewelry habit? There's a wrinkle.
Well, it worked. Wow. I was very impressed.